you know, we have only ever lived in a time in which we've outsourced a lot of our power to societal systems, the societal safety net. And we see that with the internet, we see that with global trade, we see that with organized religion, and we see that with pretty much everything that dominates the collective story. And as we move into 2027 and beyond, those collective holdings of power are going to disintegrate. So the power in the era of the sleeping phoenix comes back into the hands of the individual. And so with that, there's like this literal issue of power, like electricity, and how a lot of the technology that we've grown accustomed to and kind of dependent on may not be there much longer
Right.
to hold all the data, to hold all the infrastructure, to hold all the memory, to hold the know-how, the how-to of life and how things work. And so in terms of memory and remembering, we're kind of being asked to bring all of our memories with us into this new era because human beings will be the new storehouses of knowledge. I mean, they've always been that, but as far as going to the library or looking something up online, that may not be an option for much longer as we move forward into history time. And so when I think of your movement and your work with the elders, it's like these are living record keepers of how to do life, how to make things work, how to anything, you name it. So I think one of the biggest things that we're being asked to step into is to be living record keepers, and not just in a metaphysical sense, but in a very practical sense. How do you fix a tire? How do you start up an engine that's not working? Things like that are going to be really important for people to know because there's not going to be necessarily any sources to look to for those how-tos. So that's one thing that I think we're remembering is pretty much everything.
Is it going to feel like we're going back in time? Someone like say cobblers and even with cooking and gardens and all that. Is some of it going to feel that way where we regress in a good way to the older ways and means?
I think that, we don't necessarily have conscious access to how much corruption we tolerate in order to have what we have in today's world.
Mhm.
A lot of the things that we take for granted in terms of comforts and infrastructure and resources, come at a huge karmic cost to the truth of us as beings, the ecosystem of our planet, of even incarnation, reincarnation, and death. And it's like we're going to have to move into this much simpler way of life because those are going to be the only things that don't come from this huge, you know, system of harvesting and abuse that we've all kind of just been born into. And I think that as more of that becomes clear to people, it's going to cancel out the options that we have because it's tainted. So it is going to be kind of a do-it-yourself era. It's going to be the DIY empowerment that's going to take the forefront of what evolves humans. And at the same time, we're going to have this new species that's coming through, and we can't quite pin down what their relationship to technology and survival and creation is going to be because when we look at it on paper, it looks like they're very self-sufficient and very powerful, especially in terms of resource generation and manipulating the material world. So it's kind of like,
What species? What are you talking about? What's that in the species coming through? You mean
there
the
we
one
call
that's going to be self-sufficient or what?
we call them the raves. So
What?
raves,
Ray?
Raves. Yeah.
Oh, I
And
don't know
so
about it.
after 2027, human beings will start to be birthing this new generation. It's not going to be everybody born after 2027. It's going to be specific parents that are viable kind of hosts for raves.
Mhm.
And they are beings that do not have a single individual ego. They only come fully online within their consciousness in a group of 3 to 5. And
Isn't that cool? It's cool.
in human design, we call this penta. And penta is something that already exists because as human beings, we form pentas, and these are these larger energetic bodies that get created when we come together. And they have a mind of their own. Except for now, our pentas are not conscious. They kind of this one, they move in one direction. They have their attributes and their strengths, and they create on their own terms. And we take this for granted, but if you've ever felt like, when you're around your family, you can't really access your full self, or you're at work and the person that you really are isn't really seen because you're actually plugged into a penta that's using you for a bigger purpose. It doesn't mean it's a correct purpose. It doesn't mean it's, aligned with the laws of the cosmos purpose, but it's just saying that your individuality gets kind of, you know, um, reduced in these pentas. Now, when we look at the raves, they're going to take this idea of penta and it becomes conscious. So think of a group of people that have one shared consciousness that is much greater than any individual. It's like times 16. And so you have these new beings that don't function as individuals, that don't have the survival motivation that we do, but that can share consciousness and manipulate electromagnetic fields on a much higher level than we can. Yet they're very vulnerable in the 3D, in the physical, in just the way that they are needing a lot of care and protection when they're first born because they don't have the strength, the muscle, or really the functioning capacity that we do in terms of the human experience. They're built just to be, a engine of consciousness that can hold so much more capacity for awareness than we can. But in doing that, they kind of sacrifice their individual will. So, do you have a question?
Yeah. These people, these raves, so they're not already here. These are children that are going to be born, you're talking about.
Right. So we have,
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was from a different planet or something. You're speaking of something. No, okay.
yeah, it's about new children that are born that have kind of basically completed a mutation that's been brewing within us for generations. And some of what we see today in terms of people with autism are kind of the first signs of this mutation, but they aren't the full raves because the bodies that we have today are not built for raves. After 2027, February 18th of 2027, there's, this shift that happens in the cosmic clock in which the frequencies on the planet will change, which will allow a new kind of vehicle, a new kind of vessel to be created through us. And in this
We're going
new,
to get changed a bit.
well, we're going to stay the same because we're already
Oh,
here, we're already born. We're the older model.
yeah.
And and this is where it gets really interesting because in essence, it's the end of our story. We're nearing the end of the chapter of the human being. And the Raves will come in and they will be kind of the new favorites. And so for us, this time is about really fully embodying what it means to be a human with conscious awareness and to be able to share our consciousness and to become self reflective as a consciousness. Because if you think about AI and how it's getting so big, we're the original AI. We're the original experiment to see, can consciousness become self aware in physical form? So, in these bodies that we have here, we have a crystal of consciousness that builds our physical form, and then we have a crystal of consciousness that runs our personality, which is the witness of this life experience. And the experiment is, can we reach full cognitive capacity? Can we be a self reflected consciousness that's awake to its own nature and its place in the cosmos? Or are we going to be identified with the ego and with the struggle for survival and be locked in those lower dimensional fields of
Hmm.
awareness? So this is our really, it's our celebration time
Mhm.
moving into 2027. We're reaching our fullness as beings. And that's why I think it's so important that the elders are stepping forward because they have the knowledge, they have the experience. And in human design terms, we don't see somebody as fully mature until they reach their Uranus return, which is 82 years of age typically.
What is
Joyce,
that
So
again? Say that again.
82. It's called the Uranus return, Joyce, and it's when you turn 80, once you turn 82.
Oh, oh, and oh yeah, that's what you were telling me about. What does that do
Uh-huh.
for me? I'm 83.
So that's kind of like the full, if we tend to look at human life from the perspective of like survival and reproduction and viability of just the biology of us. But when we look at a human life from a spiritual perspective, we see that the time frames with which we judge our progression are very different. And the actual full blossoming of a person in those terms, from a spiritual perspective, is more of the Uranus return. That's when this all the crap has gotten out of the way finally, and the consciousness can fully stand in its full light and express its outer authority. And that's what the elder movement is all about. It's about beings who are not just following an inner authority to navigate life and to stay in alignment with their truth and their dharma and their destiny, but in doing so, they also have activated their outer authority where they can actually share true wisdom, not that's just a bunch of concepts and words like as AI would do, but that carries a frequency that has atomic weight. That just by you being in the presence of somebody like yourself, you're physically, energetically changed by that exchange.
Well, I'm how then? Well, see, I haven't heard of any of this kind of stuff at all.
This is
So
why
it's
we're
very
bringing it
interesting.
forward. Yay.
Pardon me?
That's why we're bringing it forward.
Yeah. And of course, I'm very focused on what is happening technologically. And I'm planning on being in a med bed in the next week, and I'm going to have 30 years removed.
Okay, I'll see you
So,
next week then.
yeah, they're already working, and they'll be announced to the public on the 1st of January. But it's free, and it's a complete reatomization process. Everything is cured. And I would think a lot of our elders would be real interested in the bed. Um, I have a lot of life left to live, and so I need to back it up for a young man.
Well, you
He
get
doesn't care. He
you
likes
get to
me there.
really pull it into high level gear now because you've come through this Uranus return, Joyce, and you're now 83. Okay, so I'm going to ask some further questions so we keep you going because I love everything you're sharing. So you often describe Dylan, the rave way shower, not as someone who leads through doing, but through witnessing and holding frequency. For our elder listeners, many of whom have never been told their presence is enough, which is what you were talking about just a minute ago. How might the elders begin to recognize themselves in this role? Like, what's their connection with the raves and this new, great, beautiful evolution that's going to be coming forward for us, the creator beings that are going to be coming along?
I think it starts with us. We definitely have a connection to the raves, but that will come later and it will be abundantly clear what that is.
Okay.
But I think for now, it's really about, in human design, a big part of the work that we accomplish is deconditioning. So it's about dismantling these structures in our minds and our bodies, in our DNA, that impose a false value system on what and who we are.
Mhm.
And so, a big part of the answer to your question is to really recognize yourself, not in terms of maybe even the career that you've had or the role that you play for your family unit, or, you know, those things are important, but to really see yourself as cosmic consciousness in human form, and to take off all those labels that might weigh you down or fragment how you see yourself or truncate how you express yourself, or, anything that creates a division within your being, and it ends up being a non-helpful filter to your wisdom and your knowing and your truth. So I think the first step is really, I mean, that's why human design is great, because it gives us a map to guide us through this dismantling process. And it gives us something visual to look at on paper or on a screen that can say, oh, this conditioning theme, this belief pattern that I have, that I'm not good enough no matter what I do, or that motivates me to overcommit, or, to undervalue myself. Oh, I can see that right here, that's not me. That's not my truth. That's not part of my organism. It's actually an imposed conditioning theme that once I recognized it, I can start to release it because it loosens its grip on me as a control feature. So I think a big part of giving ourselves permission to be the elders that we are is to sometimes have to do a little work around dismantling why we think we're valuable to people or not, and to really see the intrinsic value in ourselves as a conscious being.
Which comes down to that beautiful word presence. It's like
Hmm.
veering away from performance, which is all that outer cloaking and armor that's not legitimate, and actually just embodying presence. And one of the things I've said pretty many times in the podcast is just when you walk into a room, say you're at a Christmas function and your grandmother's there, you can't not notice your grandmother. Like there really is a presence to an elder's energy. Like it just, yeah, it's almost, I don't want to call it and put a label on it like royalty, but it helps you understand it. But it's just amazing to watch how many people want to go up and speak to them, and it's fairly unconscious, but it's just such a precious uh knowing and viewing to acknowledge that is something to pay attention to, and hoping and wishing that through this, what we're talking about today, and through everything that this movement is about, is that these elders start to realize how important and how beautiful their presence is. I mean, it's just a frequency that's, I mean, look at what's going on in your life, Joyce. I mean, what are you drawing because of the frequency that you're carrying right now? Whatever it's about, it's something, and it fits with everything he's talked about with the Uranus return. So we'll have to see as we go along with, you
Well,
know,
you're going to be hearing about me very soon, they tell me.
okay. We're looking forward to it.
I am too, just to see what the heck it is.
Yeah. So, Dylan, you operate in what I call a multidimensional coherence. What was the earliest moment, personal or cosmic, when you realized you weren't here to solve problems, but to architect new worlds?
That's a big one, isn't it?
It's a fun one though. I mean,
Wow.
I'm going to be so interested to see like even how old you were. Do you have a set memory of something like that?
Architect new worlds. It's so
Yes.
funny because
Yeah.
when I was a kid, my grandpa always used to like sit there and do my homework with me, and he would say, "It's your job to find out the new alternative fuel source because this fossil fuel stuff is just not working." And that was just like ingrained in me as a
Right.
child that I was gonna find the solution. And I really didn't have much of a connection to what he was saying. I was like, okay, like we'll see. Um, and and then I had also like, not necessarily about world building yet, but talking about multidimensional, like I had my first experiences of not just lucid dreaming, but dream walking, which is something that only specific, encoding people can do, where I would become lucid in my mother's abduction scenarios and would wake up in her crazy trauma that was going on to her with Zeta reptilian hybrid
Wow.
beings.
Wow. Wow.
And literally like as a 10-year old, like be in physical altercations with alien consciousness and not even being able to talk about it with her because in the waking life because the trauma was like really intense to see that stuff. But in retrospect, that was like my identity as an indigo waking up
Mhm.
for the first time. And so I was aware that we had some pretty big problems, from an early age.
Wow.
And and a lot of this stuff are things that have had to be pieced together in
Mhm.
retrospect
Mhm.
because, when it's happening, there's no context. And I was in whatever, second grade, and it's just like, um, you know, but as we, step into this new era, I guess, it really began when my first like initiations occurred with like plant medicine, which I know can be a slippery slope, but for me, those experiences were always extremely clear. Like it wasn't this disorienting, crazy, like I'm still here, but I'm fully witnessing all this. And, that started in 2019, I believe, and my first sit with ayahuasca and her ayahuasca coming into the ceremony and then looking at me and then leaving
Wow.
because she was like, I gotta go get someone else for you. And then having the entire reincarnation trap illuminated to me, like the
Wow.
forced reincarnation of fetuses and wombs and
Wow.
the frequency net and it like catalyzed this cellular knowing of things that I had been through, even incarnating in this world, in the incarnation, the fetal integration process, and
Wow.
having almost like, I guess you could call them memories of, wait, something's wrong here. This is not how it's supposed to be. Um, and also in that, the reason that I was shown that was because, I guess you don't have to think of it in terms of solving a problem, but
Right. It's about creation of the new world. It really,
it's
if we really look at it from what I just asked you, I think it's a perfect fit to that question. Like, I mean, how better than to give you the juxtaposition? Even like with even your grandfather, it's two different juxtapositions of scenarios, but they're both, and even with your mother, like if you really can step out of it and just be in that observer part, it's pretty fascinating to look at how you were given such marked you know, oppositions to have to carry and integrate at one time. And I can't even, it has to be wild to even consider what it was like for you as a like young kid to then just be back in regular life and like, where do I go with this? Like even if you even thought that way.
yeah. I mean, it was one day at a time. And I had a father who was very both my parents are spiritual. Um, but you know, my dad, who was a grid worker, whether he knew that or not,
Mhm.
I'm not clear, but he was moving to a new state. I would go hang out with him in the summers, when I was out of school. It was always in a new state. It was like always in a Sedona or some,
Oh,
North
wow.
Carolina vortex.
Fun.
And then his eventual unraveling, because he was hijacked and his consciousness was shattered,
Wow.
and he couldn't hold himself in this
Oh, so sorry
dimension
to hear that.
anymore. And so, he was labeled a schizophrenic, what
Oh,
society would say. But, being on the phone with him as a young person and him talking about microchips and diamonds and being hunted by vampires and things of that nature, things that I didn't have a context for at the time, but now in retrospect, knowing that that's very much an experience of
mhm,
some people. And he definitely pissed off the wrong folks at some point. So it was, I mean, yeah, it was a lot, but architecting new realities, I think, you know, with all of that data that those experiences gave me,
mhm.
there's always an equal and opposite, higher, there's an equal and opposite reflection in the higher
Definitely.
realms to
Right.
all of that.
Mhm.
And then that would be what I feel I was tasked to live out, was to be an anchor point for
Yay.
that opposite and equal
Yay.
reflection. And in a sense, that is a new reality being
Mhm.
built.
Mhm.
That and it's one that's built without some of the, I was trained by seeing what didn't work for
Mhm.
people in my life to know how to navigate this build out process in a really careful way. Almost like a high level, you know, security operation.
Mhm.
And to know that also, even though there's so much vulnerability and ability to be messed with, that there are eternal life values that if you can hold them and truly live by those laws
Mhm.
impeccably, nothing can touch you.
Mhm.
And it's this very fine line that we walk with this kind of knowledge and this awareness in this life of how to keep ourselves in impeccability so that we're not the agents of our own destruction by leaving a space for something that we don't want to happen. And it's a high level of initiation. It's not easy. It takes a lot of, you have to really want it. And it's sometimes, as a human being, it's hard to keep wanting something that at times has no reward and no, light at the end of the tunnel. It's not saying it's not there at all, but sometimes you don't see it. Um, and to not just capitulate to like entropy and feelings of hopelessness
Mhm.
and just the enormity of it all. But, there's always been these glimmers of
Love.
guidance, of support,
Mhm.
of, that there is a way. And it's just like, a million baby turtles will be hatched on the beach and maybe only 100 make it to adulthood. Like, you have to be willing to play with those kinds of odds and be willing to be one of those 100, even in the clear evidence that 900,000 or whatever of your brothers and sisters didn't make it, to keep going and to keep focused on that and to keep that consciousness that exists outside the limitations of this 3D reality as your guiding light. And to keep remembering why we do any of this. Like, why are we here again? And it's a level of love and compassion that's hard to even contain in a human body
Mhm.
sometimes, because
Has to
you're
be.
essentially showing up and, I don't want to say fighting, but like
Warrior work.
Why do you
championing.
think we're here?
There's a there's like 10 different answers to that. And I think it's different for each of us in this
Yes, for sure.
conversation.
Mhm.
Um,
Uh,
I have this journal entry from like right before I found human design and I was in Hawaii just being a vagabond and like just barely kind of remembering anything about anything. And I found it in the garage or whatever and I just wrote on there like I don't know quite why I'm here, but I do know I'm here to help.
Perfect.
And I was like,
Oh, that's a good mission.
yeah,
Well, it's just so cute and it's just so nice to see how simple it is. But,
right?
and it's so funny because I remember with my journey as well, it's like now I love where we are now, most especially with the work you and I are a part of. And I just remember saying, I wish I'd had a crystal ball going through everything we've weathered and all the unbelievable level of ups and down waves and polarities we've been in to understand that we were going to get to this. Like that's what I want elders and the human race to understand is we are literally we have been lucky enough to be participants here and now at this time for something we can't even fathom what it's going to mean. And even to get to participate with these rave penta groups, it's not, and we can't even describe it because it's still enough of a ways away that we can't even put it into language because it doesn't have to be put into language, first of all. But thank you for the depth of what you just shared, and thank you for persevering. Thank you to any and all of us. And I hope the people that hear what you just shared, that it tunes in and touches that aspect of themselves that can start bringing that forward. Like that is part of what I believe the elders are being called to do is bring beautiful stories like that that give so much more authenticity to us and depth to the spirit of who we friggin' are to be here now. So, you know, that's great. I mean, thank you, way beyond. Good question, Joyce. So thank you so much for sharing that. And it just is, it's so great because I guess for myself, I can only say that when I get to hear somebody share like that and share that kind of a depth, it just brings an intimacy and my heart wants to touch their heart. So, that is what we're wishing and hoping for most of all is just that heart connection that really can bring all of us together in a much more unified and on as one community way. So that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, for our elders to better understand, because you're using the word human design, and there may be many that don't know those words, how do you experience human design? Not as a system, but as a language of frequency. And how do you bridge its intelligence into something visceral, livable, and liberating for elders, creatives, and mystics?
So human design is the quantum blueprint to your soul, to put it
Perfect.
in a, one-liner. Um, and it's very useful, and one of the first rule of human design is that we're not here to make decisions over our life from mental authority. We're each endowed with an inner authority that comes from within our body's intelligence that is our compass to navigate this life. The mind is a witness, it's a storyteller, it's a, collector of experiences, and it's here to be cognitive, it's here to be aware. It's here to think uniquely and see the world uniquely, and then to share what we've collected through our voice and our outer authority. But in order to get there, you have to be able to unbecome all of the things that conditioning, family, country, religion, society has implanted in the mental field as to who you think you need to be, how you need to talk, how you need to look, how you need to show up, what's appropriate, what's not. All of these rules that constrict our ability to differentiate into our unique self. That's what human design is here for, to help you know what your inner authority is so that you can follow that and you can navigate your life from this inner compass, not from a bunch of he said, she said stuff that's playing out on the mental level. It's here to show you which aspects of you are not you, those what we would be calling the open or undefined centers in the chart. You can clearly see, oh, these emotional highs and lows that I'm always making choices out of because I can't bear the feelings, those are not even mine. I literally am an absorber and amplifier of other people's emotions. And also, because my identity center is not defined, I let myself take on what everybody else wants me to be. And so I'm reacting out of everybody else's emotions, and I'm just who everybody tells me I am. And oh, that's why I'm not very happy in my life. Or that's why I'm not seeing the life that I know in my soul is correct for me or that I came here to live. We literally get these wayward programs that start running in our consciousness and they glitch us out into some alternative life where we're not actually connected to our direction, why we came here, what we're passionate about, and to a degree that we sometimes forget, because we feel forced. We feel our survival is threatened if we don't live in these ways that we're conditioned to live in. And so it takes a lot of willingness and courage to go against the very thoughts that are being thought by
Oh,
your brain and to choose something different. And it's a process, but that's why human design is here to help us parse out and get very clear on what's not us and what is us, and then to navigate from that new place, to decide who we commit our energy to, what job we take, where we live, what we eat, especially, who we answer to, and it allows us to reshape the fractal of our existence. And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but eventually, um, the way we think changes, the way we feel changes, the way that our body can heal itself changes because we've shifted out of living by others' rule, which wasn't even theirs. It was just what was programmed before them and before them and before them. And we shift into our life. We get our life back as it was meant to be lived, and that's something that as much as the change of the cycle in 2027 will bring a lot of loss of familiarity, it will give us better chance than ever to live our true design, to live by what we really came to be, not what the tribe or the corporation or the community or the family or the spouse needed us to be or made us be, but to who we really are. So it's going to be like a global detox. It's going to be a fast from all of this comforting but compromising fluff that we've become so accustomed to because it feels so safe and comfortable and it's so nicely arranged. But ultimately, it's a bottleneck for our evolution. So it has to go. And that's where the Phoenix Rising comes in, because the Phoenix Rising is going to burn down anything that is not in alignment with cosmic law. Because there's kind of two realms that we deal with here, and that's we talk about a lot in Rave Wayshower is, there's the cosmic consciousness, and it's abundant, and it's gift giving, and it's expansion oriented, and it's loving, and it's, you know, life giving. And then there's the ego, there's the conditioned ego of the planet of humans and all the politicking that we do, all the ways that we get in the way of our own intuition, all the ways that we mask who we truly are to try and get that person to like us or to get approval over here or to feel safe and secure in this, particular environment that we live in. So, you know, it's the deconditioning process is not like you would think. Even the way that the cosmic consciousness functions is not like what you would think. It's very different from the way that our conditioned ego works. And um it's kind of wild to really come back into alignment with the way that things really are. It's sometimes like, oh, it could have been that easy the whole time. Sometimes it's like I would have never thought that's what the cosmic consciousness would reward, because to me it feels dangerous to be that way, right? To be selfish, perhaps, or to be, so blunt that, a lot of people can't handle it. It's not saying it's only those things, but yeah, what do we think?
Any questions on that, Joyce?
Not questions on it, just I don't know. I've always been a loner and never fit in, went group kind of living or anything like that. And I just thought that we were all navigating our own lives for the highest and best good of our life and what we contribute, and not trying to actually put that into um, any other people's head to have to do or anything. I don't know. I just it's again, does it become cultish? Does it what? I mean, is that what a cult is? Is um all of people trying to think of the same rules of their group?
Right. Yeah, Western civilization is a cult, and that's why they're so touchy about cults existing, because it clashes with the predominating
Mirror.
groupthink zeitgeist that's been implanted, the value system, the identities that are given, the choices that are given, the laws, the systems that people are put through, are all part of, yeah, a cult that runs the world.
Yeah, I don't know, but things that I've been involved in or learned from or anything, a little bit here, a little bit there, is that we're going to have some consciousness raising globally.
Yeah, we are right now.
And and so attitudes and beliefs and all of that are supposed to be uplifting and best for the whole.
Hmm.
And I have faith in that happening. I'm looking forward to it. Um, we're going to have lots of downloads, not just for that. It's going to be very exciting. I really look forward to the changes that are emanating even now.
Yeah, to me, it look when I see the picture of it.
I don't think we have to I felt isolation there in the raves, or if that's what you were mainly talking
You
about, that.
felt isolation?
Well, I don't know. I just pictured cultish groups that were family, one big family kind of involvement. Nothing wrong with that. And if that rings their bell. But I don't see it being a overtake of the earth or anything. I don't think it, I think it's too limiting.
Well, thank you for sharing that uh perception
I mean, just as,
of what you heard. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know nothing about anything.
right. So
Hmm?
it's going to be fun to see what shows up for
Well,
you.
I think they can do their own thing. And love it and live life and serve each other and whatever kind of thing. It just seems like it's not going, to me, the future is going to be more expansive. It isn't going to be so defined, you know?
Mhm.
I see that. Yeah.
Hmm.
It'll be fun to see how
And there's
it
going to
goes.
be, I mean, I don't know. I even for my kids, I always told them that they can have anything they want. They can be anything they want.
Mhm.
And they became that.
They sure did. They did a good job.
Oh, well, it's just
Yeah,
by, I didn't want them to be boxed.
right.
And so, unfortunately, though, I didn't really, well, it's not unfortunate, but other people might think so. I didn't bring them up religiously because I wasn't religious. And I thought that was boxing also at the time. But I just feel that things are going to be elevated continuously over the years as we expand and grow. And it's going to be a planetary event, but I don't feel like it's going to be, and what do I know? But,
Okay,
group.
well, let's go ahead and see how what you're just shared now fits into the other questions that we have for Dylan, and just see if any of that gets touched on through what we're asking.
Okay.
So, Dylan, your work feels like what I call soul archaeology. I loved how that came in. Not giving people identities, but helping them remember and refine them. What's the role of identity architecture in this age of planetary reorientation? I mean, you've kind of tapped on it with a little bit of with your human design so far.
The cool thing about human design is that you're looking at a chart that's based on the moment of your birth. So you're looking at the past. And in looking at the past, you are, looking at your factory defaults, the way that you came in preconditioning before you were programmed by anything. And some people are more resistant to programming than others. Like, it's just a happenstance, right? I sometimes take that for granted because I was like, no, 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 none of this. I will not be accepting any of this ever. But you're looking back at this crystalline moment of purity of who you came in to be. And even in the witnessing of that original form that you came in, something shifts. There's a quantum shift, even if you don't understand what's on the screen, you know, because in your cells remember what it was like before you were conditioned, before when you were your pure crystalline identity.
Mhm.
And the work that you do with your human design is essentially altering the past to affect the future. If you have never seen your human design, you've never seen visually, logically, rationally that representation of your crystalline purity in that way. So there's kind of a blank space there. You see your human design, then you have the starting point of who you are and your energetics. And that sends a ripple effect into the now and into the future because you can't unsee what your parameters are. You can't unsee what your natural boundaries are. You can't unsee what your design is. And so from that moment, whether it's you go all in and you're obsessed with it and you're researching and you're learning, or maybe you just have one reading and it kind of just stays with you, that moment of conscious awareness on that past moment of your original purity sends a quantum ripple throughout your entire timeline. And so identity architecting is not so much a process of building something, but of tearing down
Mm.
stuff that wasn't needed. And that's that idea of the conditioned ego that gets us approval, support, safety in the shared reality, the consensus zeitgeist reality, and then the cosmic consciousness, which is what we came from. It's the original architecture of creation, cognition,
Hmm.
energy, manifestation. And it's like switching operating systems. You used to be operating on this very limited but very predictable operating system of the collective ego, and you're switching to the more seemingly chaotic, but it's actually just more creative consciousness of the cosmos. And that literally rebuilds who you are in every moment that you honor that.
So this
And
is
it,
training to think differently than what you're programmed.
yeah, you could
Yeah,
say that.
okay. I just want to make sure I was,
But I don't know
It's
that I
about,
want to
because that's,
call it a
I believe that
training.
that is a biggie for everyone.
But I
I mean,
wouldn't, I,
I love Mind Valley. I'm going to do all their courses. I love them. I've done some, and I think everybody can benefit from any of the selections of the things that they offer. I mean, to make life better. We can't just go with whatever is a thought group of a think tank of a group. We gotta think for ourselves,
too good here.
make some choices.
Okay. So many sensitives are transmuting the final threads of codependent empathy. It's a big one. Where compassion once came at the cost of self. And this is where you can talk about the not self. How do you guide others, Dylan, in evolving from self-abandonment into a sovereign, calibrated transmission of love that doesn't dissolve their boundaries?
I would actually need to do that on a case by case basis
Mm,
because I think the ways that we are woven into that codependent tapestry are very, situational.
individual. Yeah.
Um, but if I had to give like a across the board guidance, it would be something like, people don't need you to be what you think you need to be for them that badly. I know that's not that great, but they really don't. As soon as you stop playing into that dynamic, you're actually giving everyone else permission in a way that sometimes will trigger them and they'll lash out at you or whatever. But when we look at the mechanics of what creates the human ego, it's this need to be chosen and this need to be wanted. Because when we're wanted and chosen, our limbic brain, our reptilian brain, if you will, translates that as to safety and survival. And so we develop all these complex emotional strategies and masking and all this stuff to play into a scenario that makes our deep subconscious feel like it's safe and wanted. But it's not creative. It doesn't evolve anybody. It literally suffocates and traps the energy. And then we're all kind of trying to eat at each other because we've been cut off from something that we're born to be in circulation with. And the second that you step out of that, even if they fight you to try and drag you back in, you are pulling everyone else forward with you, even if you can't see it. So it's like you have to have courage. You have to be able to also nurture your nervous system out of these pre-existing programs that it's running because the second that you try to deviate from the program, it's going to try and lock you back in because that's the only thing that brings safety and then you've got competing thought patterns, trying to orient yourself. Wait, am I independent and safe and sovereign? Or I can't do this because then it'll isolate and ostracize me. And so it's a process. I think it's a process, but it's about also knowing that like that codependency is, something that it's like this.
It's suffocating.
Yeah, it's like junk DNA. If there was really junk DNA, it would be this like side effect of like we're trying to evolve, we're evolving, we're moving forward, and then there are just these patterns that, I mean, really, when you look at it, it's the cross of planning. There's this huge background frequency that says you must fulfill the bargain to your tribe, or you'll be left alone to die in the wilderness. And so we've been under a system that says codependency is the safe way. And that's going to break apart very soon. So, one of the funny things that came up around the big, whatever, COVID thing was that COVID-19, right? They called it COVID-19. And in human design, gate 19, when you look at that gate through the gene keys, the shadow of gate 19 is codependency. And
Wow.
COVID-19 was almost this virus of breaking down the literal energetics that held that codependency in place. It's the beginning of the unraveling of that pattern. And if you look at the human design body graph, gate 19, very technical, but I think you'll get this, you like this ending. Gate 19 and gate 49 are in a channel together, and gate 49 is the one that's going to get destroyed in 2027. So, literally, the mechanics, the energetics of codependency as we know it are slated for destruction specifically in this
That's good.
changeover of the era. So, that's the crazy part about what happens in the collective. Sometimes it can seem so much like a dark master plan, but it's actually just a reflection of what's actually just within the mechanics of us, us and our relationship to the bigger cycles.
Well, yeah, and just even understanding what the whole process of the cross of planning was about, just helping us to get to exist in matter, to like really be submerged in matter, and we're shifting out of that with the sleeping phoenix that we're going into. So we definitely got our lessons and our experience of that for these last 400 years for sure. But it is always wild to switch from one cycle to another. It's almost like I see like rubber bands or something that are cut, and they whatever's there just goes flying in all these different
Yeah.
directions.
Oh, I think it's exciting.
I know it's always definitely, I told you, I think it's exciting. So as someone who naturally builds systems and legacy, what do you sense is the deeper pattern or unseen architecture you're actually creating, even beyond what you consciously intend? That's a biggie. That's probably, I mean, I'm asking you to dig here.
For me, it's very ancient. It goes way
Mm.
beyond the cross of planning into, the histories of that you probably are familiar with from Keylontic science, but I carry a fragment of Thoth. And so a lot of my redemption mission in this life is to undo a lot of the damage that consciousness catalyzed, which means a lot of healing back into family lines that turn their back on the cosmic consciousness, turn their back on source, and thought it would be a good idea to write their own story in a way that was not life affirming, that was, um, you know, extractive, manipulative, deceptive, and um, just wrong. So, I mean, that goes into a lot of what we know as like the histories of the Anunnaki and their genetic
Manipulation.
tampering so that they could keep a herd of livestock that were forgetful, disconnected from their true power, easy to manipulate and harvest, and you know. And so I think in terms of like the greater sense of codependency with our masters, I think a lot of what I've always championed for is for people to vehemently reclaim their authority as beings, over and above all things that have been done to us, over all governance, over all hierarchy, because it's all fake, it's all false. And that's why it has to go down in the Phoenix, because it's like it seems to work all right, but it's still a tangent of 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 the truth. And it's so deceptively like, it's like this is not even 1% of us, of who we really are and what we're really
Right.
about.
Which is hysterical.
And we're led to believe that we're barely getting somewhere. And it's like, no, we've been, there's an artificial barrier that's been put to our true capacity, evolution, and expansion. And a lot of that comes down to, do we trust ourselves to be our own authority? We've been stripped of trusting ourselves, owning our own leadership, owning our own voice, our own presence, taking up space. And those are like the seed core issues I see to a lot of the stuff that goes on that is completely wrong, and anti-life and anti-human and it's like we kind of let it happen because we've forgotten the alternative. And so everything that I've ever been about, even before I could remember it, like even before I knew why, like just being that kid that was like, this codependency crap that you all are doing is ridiculous. Like you think that this is how things should be. Like, oh.
Well,
Um, so yeah, I got a little lost on the
well, the
answer there.
schools have got to change because they, they have to support more of a sovereign being educate, that point
No
out
more
the
schools.
I was going to
richness,
say,
what
aren't
you
the schools,
already, pardon me?
aren't the schools going to fall apart anyway? I mean, aren't we going to be doing completely different schooling that's going to
Oh,
be,
yeah. I'm saying though that it's going to be the responsibility of whoever is putting the school programs together has to be pretty together.
uh,
But I think the individuals have to be elevated, each of them, instead of being afraid to not be a part of something because it makes them feel secure. And they have to be taught a self-assuredness and all that kind of. There's so much. It's a big task, but it can be done if it's laid out right.
that's why I did my course of embodying elder wisdom, that 6-part course that people can find on the website. It's all about everybody tapping into their inner authority and bringing it forward.
Mm-hmm.
So more questions. You're doing great. Thank you so much for everything you're bringing forward.
Of course.
So you referenced, Dylan, your body as a messenger, like an oracle. What have you learned about trust, not just intellectually, but at the nervous system level, and how does that shape your leadership?
Trust takes patience, and it's more patience than your mind is typically willing to hold. There's so much power in each moment of presence, right? Every moment that we can just sit there and be with what is without needing to solve it, without needing to interject, without needing to get to the conclusion so everyone's comfortable again. That's when the real stuff shows itself. That's when the true magic, that's when Source and the helpers can show their, support, guidance, and sometimes just the solution. Not even just a not even just a piece of the puzzle, the whole solution. And I think that when we're faced with difficulty, sometimes we give up a little too soon, or we try and get into our rational 3D mind, which is like basically handicapped compared to like our true consciousness. And we rush things along out of a fear of failure. We rush things along out of a fear of embarrassment. And we don't let that moment truly happen where the what wants to be catalyzed gets catalyzed. So, the body's rhythm and the body's um, process, it's not that it's slow, it's just that it's not in such a hurry like the mind is.
Mhm.
The mind is insecure. That's why it's in a hurry. Whereas the body is like, let's take 3 hours to really process this through everything. And then there's, the golden key that we were looking for. But if we, after 15 minutes, change the subject and walk out of the room and go busy ourselves with some distraction, then we've missed that opportunity to get to the real solution. So, like the body as an oracle is really being the vehicle, the vessel, the hollow bone for cosmic consciousness to create through. And it also takes putting down our belief that we're the only ones responsible for what's going on. That's what the collective conditioned ego
Yes.
believes. It says it's all on us. We're the only ones doing anything. And it's like, no, you're just kind of a receptor for God. And if you keep yourself open to being that receptor, that's when miracles happen. That's what the rave showers are all about. It's about being in that state of receptivity to miracles that you are kind of like a walking catalyst for the cosmic consciousness. Like you're a chess piece from source. Uh, you're a crystalline extension of the field of consciousness, and you'll be put right where you need to be put to be that catalyst. But if your childhood conditioning about scarcity is running the program, you're gonna not have a coherent experience of that. You're gonna dip in and out. You're gonna wonder why things are not working. You're gonna blame it on yourself. You're gonna shut down, and then you're gonna completely miss the point. So and that's why courage, the word courage is the time of the heart, and the heart having the greatest electromagnetic field of any aspect of our physicality, greater than our brain. It's about giving yourself the time to be in the resonance with this electromagnetic field that is literally a crystal, an extension of source. So
I love it.
that's
Love it. I love it.
That's the only training that I would say we do is the training to expand our capacity to be in that state.
Mhm. Great, great way to put it. I mean, one of the things that I witnessed, and it was actually was a meeting that I was in with you that I got just a clarity on was just understanding that like what you're really talking about here to me is just the emotional wave. Like our tendency is to want to disrupt the emotional wave instead of just hanging with that emotional wave, no matter what it looks like. I just had one a couple of nights ago, and it reminded me of a teapot, where it just blew open the lid and sent everything flying. And I was like, "Ooh, you are in this one. You're just letting that lid go off." And yet understanding, it's almost like just being the observer and watching the experience. And then, like a day or two later, it's just amazing the clarity that came through. So it was so beautiful to understand. And I did learn this from something you said And it was just, it's just being the observer of the emotional wave, like, oh, okay, here goes teapot, implosion, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, here goes shame, like not having to disrupt it or thwart it, like you're saying, and just allowing it to just come in its slower fashion, like you're describing with the body, and just weave its way through. And it really is fascinating when we're able to do that, just to see how it does play out. And it's almost cute, because you like a day or two later and you're like, oh wow, that just makes so much better sense now. And there's no way I could have found that within that, hysteria that was going on, and a warranted hysteria. Like even when the nervous system's going through reaction, when I look at everything that was, coming my way in that moment, it was like, of course you're going to have a teapot lid go off. I mean, why wouldn't you? But it's just very fascinating just to understand what you're saying, and I love that. I hope that for those listening, this sinks in, because I just think it's we've had so many good morsels here today. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's that deeper witnessing consciousness that can see the reactivity and see the upset and the trigger, and also know that that's not the truth.
Hmm.
And that, responding to that text from that place of reactivity
Hmm.
is the way to recreate the same feeling
Uh-huh.
as that situation
Yes.
progresses. Whereas if you can wait for the emotional wave to complete and you
Uh-huh.
get to this point of clarity, and then you're moving from that point of clarity, responding from that point of clarity, you're actually catalyzing a different outcome, a
Uh-huh.
different timeline. And again, it comes down to that patience piece. And it's just because it's tied into our survival. I've got to be right. I've got to defend myself. I've got to say the right thing, and it uh, cheats us out of like creating what we really want.
Hmm. Yay. Yay, yay. Let's see what else we've got here that's so good. So you talked a little bit about the ayahuasca, so you've spoken with some clarity about that. When we enter trance or contemplation in the context of integrity, I think that's the key for us to look at here. Not to escape, but choosing to listen more deeply, something opens. How do these altered states of consciousness support the weaving of our visions into strategy in a way that's guided and not forced?
Well, the altered states, like picture a xylophone, right? And and then that xylophone is your different DNA strands,
Okay.
right? And so in this typical um, frequency that we operate in, maybe we're hitting the first three ding, ding, ding of the xylophone. We've got our first three dimensions of consciousness, and we have the ideas and solutions that come from that perspective. And these altered states, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through, plant allies or other agents, it's allowing you to hit these higher octaves in your strands of DNA. And so you can then begin to see the tapestry that you're weaving from 30,000 feet, so to speak, rather than 50 feet. You just see a bigger bird's eye view of the blueprint that you're creating. And that clarity helps you bring in these divinely inspired ideas. That's where we're getting the downloads. That's where we're getting these flashes of insight. The stuff we talk about in the group with like muses talking to us and Greece calling for no reason and things like that. It's like those are moments of access to a higher dimensional aspect of who we are. And so it's just like when you're in a plane, the higher you go up, the more you can see, the less enmeshed in the hubbub of this realm. There's more peace, there's more clarity, there's more overview. And I think those experiences, we're designed to have those experiences naturally, whether that,
Right.
I mean, we're all designed for our own kind of mystical encounter. Human design even shows that. And then there are these other ones that we can have more, by choice, but still, I think these are pretty much orchestrated by the higher self. It's not
I agree.
common, not an accident. And so, Yeah. I think they're just giving us a bigger repertoire to play with.
And I love the xylophone. That's a perfect way to picture it and paint the picture of what that feels like and looks like, and how the experience makes more sense. It's great. It's really good. So, for those new to this language, especially our elders, is there a simple, accessible way to begin working with altered states of awareness, like something that doesn't require complex techniques, but gently opens the door to deeper inner truth? Are there any like seeds there that you can
I
plant?
mean, the first and only thing you truly would ever need is your breath, to
Mhm.
be honest. The other things are helpful because sometimes we're so behind or clogged up that we need some extra help.
Mhm.
But, some of the most oracular experiences I've had have just been from simple breath work,
Mhm.
nothing complex. Like 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, 12 seconds in. Just I'm not saying that's the pattern. I'm not a breathwork teacher, but you could look something up on
Right,
YouTube
right.
and make sure that you're sitting somewhere safe so in case you kind of fall out for a second. But it's our nature. It's who we are.
Mhm.
The stuff isn't coming from the substance. It's coming from us. It's just these things allow us to kind of
Open the
just
airway.
jump above the normal veils. Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Perfect,
And
perfect answer.
something as simple as like, YouTube box breathing and or even holotropic breath work.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you might see your guides clear as day just from that.
Hmm. Yay. I love it. Perfect. You often describe the rave way short not as someone who leads through, oh, did I do this? Through doing, but through witnessing and holding frequency. For our elders listeners, many of whom have never been told their presence is enough, how might they begin to recognize it? Oh, I think I already did that one. That one came from, okay. So if you could place one message directly into the hearts of those elders listening, those who may have felt invisible, underacknowledged, or unsure of their place in this world, what would you most want them to know with their bodies, their codes, and their futures?
If you really want to be heard, you have to be willing to be misunderstood. And you have to be willing to be rejected many, many times because that's not anybody's fault. Because when you're bringing a truly new or novel or original frequency into the world runs on collective logic, which means it's really looking for things that have been proven time and time again, same outcome,
Yeah.
no matter who does it, and that's what's accepted.
Yeah.
Now, most of us that are way showers, elders, oracles are not bringing in that kind of information or frequency. We're bringing in something that nobody's heard of before, or they don't have the vocabulary to
Mhm.
relate to it or the experiences. So you've got to be willing to repeat yourself and not take it personally every time someone doesn't get it, because it's not really about any one of those people in the long game anyway. It's about the frequency, it's about the vibration that you hold. And if you're using other people's lack of ability to get it to justify not sharing your frequency or trusting your frequency, you're not doing it. You're just saying you want to do it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the thing is you can't let other people be your outer authority.
Yes.
You can't let their one way or the other be the reason why you're doing it or not. It has to be yours. And if you have that, and if you can find that, then that will naturally magnetize those that are in resonance with that message, that frequency, or those solutions that you're here to bring. But sometimes that's a long road of
Oh,
projection and misunderstanding. And I know, yeah, same.
yeah, the word that comes up is ostracized. That was the word I got to learn about this week, and I went, boy, does that fit. I mean, anything like where you've stepped so out of the box and you're before your time. I mean, look at explorers that went out and explored for land. I mean, you can count on the fact that you're gonna just create so many triggers and so many reactions. And yeah, but it took me with what you're describing, though. I can honestly say it has taken me truly my whole life to get that premise, to really start to grasp it. And that's why I talked about the crystal ball before, because now I'm starting to really get it. And part of it, it's like what you talk about before too, is the embodiment of it in our within our bodies. We're starting to really listen to that inner authority. So I love that. That's a beautiful, beautiful ending and seed to plant with our elders. And I hope they hear it. And this is, I would recommend what's been shared today. And thank you so much, Dylan. You've had so much that you've offered here. I highly recommend this be listened to a couple times. This is one of those transmissions that's got so much depth to it. It's going to be one of those transmissions where you listen and you hear something, you go back in and think, I didn't hear that before. And it's going to be where we are and what we're ready to hear at the time. And I just recommend to any of the people that watch this and listen to this to um, give it some repetition, because there was a lot in here, and I'm eternally grateful to you for doing this. So if you want to give any kind of information, like is your app getting ready to come online yet?
We're working on that. Um,
Tell everybody what that's going to be.
well, this app is going to be, you know what? It's not time yet.
We'll
Um,
find out. Okay.
yeah, it's a new
Okay.
frontier for
Gotcha.
me.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
I think everything that everyone needs is in the conversation today.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, and also that you do readings. Do you want to share
Yeah.
that at least? And where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at hdmaven.com.
Okay.
And you can also find me if you just want to email directly, it's hello@hdmaven.com.
Perfect.
And whatever query or interest that you have, feel free to send it there and we'll put you in the right direction.
Yay. Yay, 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 yay.
Where are you located, Dylan? Where do you live?
I'm in Orange County of California,
Oh, you
Southern
are.
California.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm in Palm Desert, so I know where you are.
Oh, I was just out in Landers, Joshua Tree area the other day.
Oh, you really?
Yeah,
Oh, so you went to Joshua Tree. I love Joshua Tree. That's
I
one of
feel
my
alien out there.
one of my most favorite people I ever came across was there. He bought I forget what you call those lots of land. It was a huge lot, like way inexpensively, and he built a teepee. He put his teepee out there and lived just really lived very, very frugally. He had a little kitchen outside the teepee, and all he had was a radio. And eventually he did keep doing some digging and came to find a spring. So he had a spring of
Oh,
water. And
That's
it
good.
was so fascinating because everybody went to visit him. I always felt like it was like the people that were called to visit him, it was almost like it was what they needed for themselves. Like
Sure.
they needed
Hmm.
that what he was doing, they needed. And
But they
so
needed the guts.
yeah, well, and just they just
You know
needed
what I mean? That's what they were
attachment. And
admiring, not, is that he actually did it.
I know
He
he was
might have
so cute.
conjured the idea a couple of
But
times, but
he had
I wouldn't.
he had Christmas lights on the inside of the TV. He was precious. So, to every elder listening, your time is not past, it is arriving. You are not here to hustle or perform, you are here to witness, to be seen in your full light. This era is not about effort, it's about frequency. And yours, Elder Wayshower Dreamseer, is needed now more than ever. As we close, may you remember the path of the rave wayshower is not ahead, it is within. Thank you for walking with us today. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, Dylan. Nice to actually meet you.
Thank you. Great to meet you too, Joyce. Thank you, Annie.